Hi everybody, Emily Craven here, the digital producer at the Queensland Writers Centre, and today I'm talking to the lovely Linda McBride-Yuke. Now, Linda is an editor at the fabulous Black and Write program, which is run out of the State Library, and thank you so much for joining us today, Linda.
No worries, thank you for the invitation.
So I just wanted to get you guys to tell us a little bit about the Black and Write Indigenous Writing and Editing program.
It was actually a vision of Sue Abbey and Theodora Lesokan in regards to some very preliminary research showing that there weren't very many Indigenous authors' manuscripts being produced in the Australian literary world. Part of that vision was then to make a pilot project called Black and Write. So what Black and Write Indigenous Writing and Editing will do, it actually trains and mentors Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander editors in the art of manuscript development. And it also, a broader goal for Black and Write is create like a dynamic of long-term support for revitalisation of contemporary Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander writing and editing, and train, mentor and promote outstanding Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander writers and editors.
So the pilot project ended up becoming a permanent one?
It did. The State Library of Queensland, after 2 years of initially trainee editors and intern editors, and then graduated as fully trained Aboriginal editors, and we're pretty rare.
Yeah, well, I was about to say, are there many in Australia that do the sort of program that you do?
Well, there isn't. There are Aboriginal editors who are fully trained. Dr. Sandra Phillips is one of them, and the Black and Write editing project is actually quite unique.
Then that makes you the perfect person, I suppose, to give us some of the highlights or important moments in the history of Indigenous writing and publishing, particularly in Queensland and Australia.
As I said, the history of Indigenous writing has been a bit spasmodic over the years, a bit ad hoc, until recently, and most of them are all mainly autobiographies and memoirs. But there seems to have been more of a shift recently towards the writing of fiction through Black and Write. Sue Mcpherson, who was one of our inaugural winners, some of the highlights for her and for Black and Write in the State Library in Queensland was not only did she win our inaugural competition, but she actually ended up going to an international writers forum, UBID. Herself and Ali Cobby-Eckerman, who was our other inaugural winner, they were nominated as an Aboriginal national award called the Deadly Awards. And both the writers were nominated in the literary category of the Deadly Awards, and Ali Cobby-Eckerman, who wrote Ruby Moonlight, won. And Ali's Ruby Moonlight has been translated into Russian, Indian and Croatian.
That's wonderful to have Indigenous writing being translated into so many different languages. It's a great cultural expansion.
Oh, absolutely.
I suppose I wanted to sort of dig a little bit deeper. As you said, you guys are one of the main programs in Australia for it. I wanted to sort of dig, I suppose, further into your Queensland roots and find out what is unique about working with Indigenous authors in Queensland in particular.
The first thing is really that Queensland is the only state that has both cultures. So you've got Aboriginal people and Torres Strait Islander people, and that exists in no other state in Australia. And I think this actually may go beyond Queensland, but we've all got the same kind of cultural template that we work with, the same cultural mindset. There's no need for an explanation about our language. Really, the only focus is mainly working with the Indigenous author about mainstream expectations.
And being able to find that balance between the mainstream and the voice and the culture.
Yes.
I suppose you would also have a really unique perspective, which I was hoping that you'd sort of be able to share with us, and that is, why is it important to understand how to work with Indigenous authors? Because as you said, there's that fine line between culture and mainstream, and a lot of people get lost in the mainstream channel, which kind of sweeps by and doesn't take time to understand how it might be worthwhile working with Indigenous authors. So I wanted to sort of get a bit of a feel for that from you.
I think that it's important to understand how to work with Indigenous authors. It's very tricky because I think if an Aboriginal editor is working with an Aboriginal writer, then we pick up cultural nuances, and that's just based on being Aboriginal and being similar lifestyle experiences as the writer. So there's languages that would be used by the Indigenous writers that we either understand or be able to connect to quickly. There's obviously a lot of similarities between Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal life experiences, but there are also profoundly different experiences. And that is, for example, a lot of Aboriginal people, not all, were raised under the government acts and legislations, the removal of children, going from traditional lands. And a lot of these will be covered in the workshop, but I mean, that's just a bit of a teaser about some of the reasons why you need that kind of understanding.
So you almost need like a background, not only a background history, but a background understanding of the differences in experiences so that you don't lose what's different about Indigenous writing.
That is absolutely right, because it's a meeting of two different worlds, which, if it's done correctly, can produce some beautiful work, and having at least some kind of understanding of the Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander culture.
Well, thank you so much, Linda. That was really informative.
Thank you.